things change, that's a diagnostic tool for him to know that something could be happening. If he's losing mud, that could mean that the hole's taking mud somewhere, so we pump something in it to stop that from happening. If he's gaining mud, there's some coming into the well bore that's changing the property, so he monitors all that here.
If that happens, water flow
Not
in
here.
or something?
I mean, like if we were going down to the Austin Chalk or someplace where you actually have gas that comes in, that would be something like we'd call a kick, where all of a sudden gas starts to infiltrate, and all of a sudden the mud property, let's say, you've got a mud tank that holds 250 barrels of mud, and all of a sudden now your mud tank's reading 260 barrels of mud. You gain something somewhere. That could be a gas infiltration into that mud system. It's raising the level of that tank and tells you that something's going on down hole that you need to be aware of. So in these instances, no, there's just there's nothing that affects the properties of the mud. But the tools are here in case anything ever did happen. They've got alarms, so I mean, if it were to go out of a certain range, it would alarm in here to let them know that something's up. So if they didn't see it, there's going to be an alarm that goes on. And these rigs do drill in environments. The Haynesville, North Louisiana, very difficult drilling, hot, deep, things like that. It's not a Barnett shale. It's a kind of a cookie cutter, easy thing to drill. And those are the kind of diagnostic tools you have to watch because those wells can have problems. What they're seeing is too, he's watching that weight as he goes up and down. As he goes up and he starts to set back down, all of a sudden he starts to lose weight. And then the whole, we're sitting down on something's falling in a little bit. So he's watching that weight indicator to see going up and down the hole to make sure it doesn't take weight. If it takes weight, it could be sitting off the side a little bit. The hole could have just come in a little bit, so he works through those spots. That's what he's doing. He's watching that weight indicator.
How long do you guys normally go through this phase before you do the
Logging.
logging?
It'll probably be. How long have y'all been working this depth? Most of the day.
We've been trying to. We started back in 12 today, 1.
Okay. So you've been at it for 7 hours. And they're 3,000 foot off bottom, so maybe logging by the time they get all the way in and come all the way back out, maybe logging tomorrow morning sometime. But again, you want to make sure the hole's in perfect condition before you run in with logging tools. Because if you were to happen to get in there and get stuck with the logging tool, what you have to do is you have to pull off the top of it, and then we have to get the rig back up and go down and get them. We go get the tools with the rig. So it's time, it's money, things like that. So you want to make sure the hole's almost in perfect shape before you put any type of logging tools in. And that's what they're doing. You want your mud properties to be good. You want your hole to be good. You want everything to kind of be perfect before you run it up these logging tools. And again, in most cases, in the Barnett, you wouldn't run logs. We've got logs that are on the bottom of our tool string that give us gamma ray data, but a full sweat of logs you don't normally run. Again, in areas like this, when you haven't drilled any wells and you need log data across it, you do this process. When we skid over and drill the second well, we won't do this. We'll go down to 400 or 500 feet above the Barnett, pick up our directional tools and go. No open hole logs.
Are those logs, do you have to share those with the Railroad Commission or other?
You do have to publish logs with the Railroad Commission. There's certain clauses that allow you to keep them confidential for a certain period of time, but you do have to provide certain open hole logs to the Railroad Commission. I don't remember exactly which ones you have to send, how long you can keep them confidential if you want to. A lot of the logs we use for doing other wells that we drill in other areas, that's exactly what's happened. We get them off of public data, we get them off of Railroad Commission sites and things like that. That's where you get your information. The first time I came to one of these and saw this, when you're used to a drilling rig, it's a little different. It's almost like cheap. They're not out there doing stuff and moving pipe or anything.
Still learning those spots.
And they're seeing something there at the hole that they don't like. Something's taking weight. So they're working that pipe through that spot right there to make sure that goes away. Sometimes the holes aren't perfectly straight. Sometimes it's where there's a variation in it. So when you go back down, you kind of sit on it. Sometimes it'll be something that's fallen in a little bit to where they just need to go down and clean the hole up better. There's some cuttings or something that didn't get all the way to surface.
Why is this one outside of 331?
Kind of computer diagram. I'll let you get right here.
I need to come out here and do a bud check for me.
Where the derrick is, so kind of computer, see the top drive's all the way down.
And I keep working over here.
There, and so it'll move up and down. So he can see what, instead of having to look out there, he can look
really through it, but we come back.
and he can set all of his limits so as far as how fast he wants to turn.
Get him
He
a
wants
good
everything to
check,
work in a
make sure
parameter
we
between
got
X and
everything we
Y.
needed.
He can program all that in here. He can program the touch screen, bring it up, put in the parameters he wants it to work on. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Like when you're drilling, I'm putting holes
You go
in there
this
and
street
clean
here?
PHA up and stuff.
That's where you set everything you're gonna drill with, as your ROP, your weight on bid, your stars.
So instead of a guy on a brake handle feeling it, you can plug it into a computer and say, okay, I want it to drill X foot per hour. I want it to have this, this, and this, and the computer's controlling how much weight it's putting on that drill pipe. It's not a person in here manually doing anything. It's the computer controlling via all these variables. And a lot of that has to do with hole stability. You want your hole to stay intact and things like that. And a lot of it has to do with speed. Different combinations of different things make the wells drill faster. So they can program everything in here. What somebody would be trying to fill on a brake handle, the computer does. And instead of having one variable, you have 4 or 5 variables that can accelerate things using a computer to help you do this stuff.
Looks like you got a little radar there off to the left.
What is that, y'all? What is that?
Directional box.
That's directional, okay. So that's reading the directional tools we have in the hole. They're telling us where we're at all the time.
Oh,
It's feeding, it's back up here, so they're seeing that. It's just like any touch screen. You can bring up the different pieces down there and see whatever the controls and all the different things they can see. You just push a button. Where everywhere else, there'd be those knobs. We know how there's those knobs and those handles and everything.
yeah.
That's your knobs and handles. It's a computer touch screen where you control everything.
but it's a kind of is like a video game or something.
I mean, they've got to be good at monitoring all their different things and controlling everything. It's so much different. It's what they say that you've got guys that have been out in mechanical rigs for 30 years. They just don't do well in this environment. It's just totally different than anything they're used to doing. They're used to doing things by feel or doing well. This is totally different. A lot of the people who do this, the guys that come up through the range are younger guys because they're just technically. We're used to doing these kind of things as far as working with computers and things like that. But I remember we had one of their first Flex ones out in East Texas at UPR, and it was a learning curve. It looked really cool, but it was a learning curve. It was.
It was a long way from that.
It was actually a trailer mounted unit where it was on a trailer and they just backed the trailer up and stand it there.
Didn't see that time.
And it was a great idea and it worked really well when it was working.
Cleaned up at that.
But
It went up and came down fine that day.
Man, there's just some areas of this that you just don't need to be replacing the human element.
Well, sometimes you're right, it works. This part, though, when they're making pipe, anytime you're doing that, moving pipe around and stuff, I think that's where everybody would say that's where most of your injuries come into. So if you can take the people out of that and use equipment to do that and remove the human element, that's where you really reduce a lot of. And that's why these rigs have such safety records. They go such a long time with any kind of accidents because they built a system that's just much safer. Much safer.
This
Using
rig's 2
machines.
years without an LTA.
A little over 2 years, 2.5 now.
2.5 years.
So
No
even
lost time accident.
without a lost time accident. So even on something that has this many moving parts and this big, they go that long.
Very unheard of on a mechanical rig.
When you have a lot of moving pieces, it's just things are gonna happen. Even with the best of people, it's not them versus anybody else. It's just those kind of things are gonna happen.